Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really glad you could be here. So today we are talking about real estate investing. We're actually talking about how to get leads if you're getting into real estate investing or already are in, and also automation, what you could do to make things work better so you can actually generate better ROI. And with us today is Robert Syfert. Now, he's the co-founder and chief visionary at realestateinvestor.com, as well as the founder of InverstorPO, property list manager, and USA Portfolio Real Estate. Now, Robert is an innovator in the real estate investment industry who creates software, tools, and services that enable real estate investors to do things better and faster. Now, he's passionate about being part of the solution and finding answers to the problems that hold real estate investors back from growing, scaling their business, and fixing those problems. So, Robert, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on today.
Yeah, I'm really excited you could be here, man, because this is two things I'm really passionate about. I love real estate investing. And by the way, I love your website domain. Like, let's start there. Like, how did you even get that domain? That's awesome.
Well, fortunately for me, it came through merging companies. So it just had to be in a byproduct. For me, it was a kind of a funny story that when we were considering merging with this other big company, he had realestateinvestor.com and bought it in the crash of '08 and never did anything with it.
Oh my gosh.
He had a whole nother company, and this was like a behind the scenes. Oh, by the way, while we're considering, partnering his services business with my software business and how can we merge it into one big thing, he mentions, well, I also own this domain, realestateinvestor.com. We could probably do something like, yep, let's go ahead and merge, and that's going to be our brand. We're absolutely using that domain. I love branding. I totally get marketing, and I don't know why you've never used it yet. So yeah. And he got it for a steal, for what every room we walk into today is like, man, that's $1 million domain. I know. And we didn't pay anywhere near $1 million for it because we bought it during the crash. So it worked out really well.
That's awesome. Now, what do you guys do? Do you do a lot within automation within the real estate investing industry?
Yeah, really. Everything we do is focused on real estate investing, and a lot of automation, but on top of automation, there's also automation through leverage, right? So we fully automate the business in the sense that from the very ground floor, it's technology and software, and using and taking advantage of the fact that there's technology and software that will actually automate most things people want to hire people for. So it saves you a ton of money. It's what saved me a bunch of money building my business. And then on top of that, we have a host of done for you services. So instead of figuring out how to hire, train, and manage people to handle the things that people have to do, we already have them built in. So that, again, automates your business because you don't have to figure any of that out. You just got to focus on closing deals.
So when we talk about automation, like in the real estate investment industry, like what kind of things can be automated?
So first and foremost, for me, the biggest thing in automation, well, I'm going to take a step back further with automation. The first part, which was a really cool thing we built originally, was automating the quality of your data. And so what I mean by that is a lot of people get taught or told, go buy this list from so-and-so, go buy this list over here, then you can market to those people. Well, that's true. But what happens, especially as you grow and scale, you start buying these lists from all these multiple sources and all these different things that you're told to go get. And the first problem that you run into is now you've got a lot of data and you don't even realize there's a lot of crossover within your data. And there's more highly motivated people within there that you're not targeting specifically because you're not, we coined phrase the name list stacking. And really all it meant was, why don't you take all of that data, put it all into a machine that figures out where all this duplication is at. So you don't, number one, you eliminate the waste of the duplication you have that you're marketing to. And then number two, well, if we can do that, then we can do the same thing and say, well, this one property that was duplicated on your code enforcement, on your divorce list, on your vacant list, and on your tax foreclosure list. Well, that one person has 4 different pain points in that example, right? They must be a lot more motivated than someone that came from any one of those lists by itself. So that's the first automation you can do, is just starting with better quality lists to market to. Then from there, the typical automation that people understand that's available, but I'll expand on what's available, is you can automate text messages to people who have already asked for information. So Not your TCPA attorney, so check with one, but as long as they have opted in and asked for information and then you're following back up with them, you can automate a text message that comes from you without you actually physically having to type it and send it every single time. You can automate email, right? Most people are familiar with the fact that you can automate an email drip sequence. So you can do that. You can automate ringless voicemail drops on a one-off basis. So meaning I can make it seem like I called you and left you a message. I've never picked up the phone or called you, right? But maybe you filled out an online web form asking for information. So I'll give you an example, right? You filled out an online web form, you asked for information, and within minutes, you got a voicemail from someone on my team acknowledging that you filled out a website form, and we'd love to follow up with you to find out more about your property or what you're looking to buy, whatever the scenario is. You got a text message saying, hey, I just tried to call you and left you a message. We're very eager to learn more about the property you put online in the form that you filled out. And then a little bit later, you send them an email basically saying all the same thing. Seems to the person, if you do that right and write the messaging and say the things right, that you personally did all that. Well, that's 100% automated. All it took was you one time thinking through what you would do when someone fills that out. And now you have a completely automated sequence. And then I could take that a step further and say, and if that person doesn't reply to any of my texts or emails or phone calls for the next 30 days from now, I want to send them a postcard to their house and try to engage them in a different way. And that can be automated too. So I don't have to think about it. It just happens. So that's the baseline foundational core, in my opinion, of the automation that matters the most. I find most investors don't follow up. They're very key on like the hot deal that came in over the phone and that's it. And if they don't get a deal, they forget, or there's a Harvard study that says they may make a second call, but after that, they probably quit. But yet 90% of deals are done between the 8th and 12th time they talk to somebody or touch them. So why not automate the part that you suck at the most so you don't have to worry about it happening?
Yeah. And I find that in all sales, like salespeople that are the best salespeople and closers are horrible at follow-up, man. And that's why like it's a no-brainer. If you put in the automation, you know those touches are actually happening, and then you just give your closers a better chance to close. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally. And I agree. I come from sales. So this is not just real estate investing. It's literally sales 101. And yeah, salespeople suck at follow-up. They don't want to do follow-up. They want to close deals. Always be closing. ABC. Who's getting coffee today? Coffee's for closers.
That's right. First place is Cadillac Eldorado. So let's start with the beginning of what you talked about there. What about list building? Like, where do you find is the best places to get lists for your industry?
Yeah, the truth is the absolute best data that you can get is local to you. And this is the part that I think a lot of people miss. They think there's some golden place to go buy a list from. There is. It's called your local county or your local courthouse. And by the way, now this isn't applicable to everywhere. Well, that statement is applicable to everywhere because every data provider that you want to buy data from, they have to get that information from the local county where it's recorded at, period. Like there's no way around that. That's where the information is recorded at. So where are you going to get the best data from? The place where it's recorded at. So now the old days, and in some counties, you may still have to do this, walk into the building to get the information or access to it. But most of them across the county now are all online. And you can probably get access online or find out what that website is by making a simple phone call. So that's the best place and the least expensive. Anywhere else you're getting it from, and there are trusted sources, right? There's the list sources, the CoreLogics, the different data providers that are out there. You're just paying for them to compile all that data for you and get it, gather it, put it in, and then you're paying a little bit more money because they've done all the work, right? So to speak. Just the difference is most of the work is online now. I would, before I'd start paying a list provider, I would just call your local county and see if you can access the data you're looking for online. And most likely you can, and most likely they'll send you a free access to it. And the data is very inexpensive. Now, if it's formatted horribly, then it may behoove you to pay a couple pennies to get the data all put together the way you need it so that you can go right to marketing and save yourself some time.
Yeah, I do. I have a land investing business and we do the same thing. We go to the county, but I have VAs do it. it seems like it's pretty
Yeah.
simple. Once you figure out the system of how to get the list from the counties, then a VA seems like can do that. Do you do that in your world too, where a VA can actually go and get the manual labor of getting the list formatted the right way? Or would you rather just divert and go and buy the list instead of even taking that step?
Well, I agree. If you're going to do it yourself, the VA is the best thing, right? Because anything like that is, if you're going to do it, you should only be doing it as an owner to figure out what's the process. Once you know the process and you can video record yourself or do something to share it, it's duplicatable. Someone else can do it. You shouldn't be doing the boring, mundane $10 an hour work, as I like to call it, right?
Yeah.
That's not a good use of your time. Now with us, we have it built in. So same like any other list provider, you can click a button, answer a couple questions of where, what data do you want? Well, in our case, we're scouring and telling you what we can provide. And then boom, it's in there and there's no VA, right? So both work. Just depends on what you want to do. So a VA is not necessary, but a VA might be necessary, like, especially when you get into very niched data. Like you're as a land buyer, you're probably after very specific things that'd be easier to find if you go get it yourself or then have a VA do it, versus a more bulk style of data. Like, hey, I just want everything that's in code enforcement or had a violation.
Sure.
I want everything that's, got equity in it on the county records. I want every transfer that happened in, 5 years ago or older kind of thing. That's a simple click a button. You could have that data instantly.
Are those some of the things you should target? Because, a lot of salespeople complain the leads suck all the time. So how do you laser target leads, when it comes to real estate investing? Name some of those things that you guys, that you do for your clients that kind of give them these different areas to fish, which sound to be like pretty effective with finding potential leads.
Yeah. Number one, I want to start with, I actually have a saying that agrees with all those salespeople, except takes it to another level. All leads suck. And if you start with that, right, that's, what do you mean all leads suck? They don't, yes, they do. They all suck. They all want top dollar. They all want the most for their house. And none of them want to give you their house for half off of what it's worth. So if you start with that mindset, now you'll engage all of them, because the truth is they don't, right? But if you approach from a sales perspective, all leads suck. Good. Now go to work and close the ones that are there waiting for you to find out why they want to sell, right? Most people that say leads suck is because, this first phone call in 5 minutes, the guy said his house is worth 100 and he wants 100. He saw it on Zillow. This lead sucks. No, it doesn't. You suck. You never asked him any questions about why he called you to begin with. He called for a reason. He didn't call because he actually wants 100 for 100, right? So I just want to put that in there because it's a funny one to me when people say the leads suck. Great closers never say that statement, right? Usually weaker closers say that statement because they don't want to do the work. Now, going back to the starting with better data, though, will increase your odds. Simple things like for what we do when you're buying single family residence, for example, right? So in my real estate business where we buy and sell houses, we're primarily targeting houses that have more equity because there's a higher likelihood they can sell to us. Now we have some reasons why we might go after less equity too, but that's a very specific niche. So in generally speaking, most people want something they can get a deal on. So look at things that have high equity. Look at things that have potential imminent timing on them. So like tax default, right? They have to solve that or they lose the house. Foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, they have to solve that or lose the house. Now, maybe they won't lose the house in today's environment, or they don't know when they're going to lose the house, but it's still an issue that they most likely want to deal with. Other things are going to be like a recent death in the family. So your probates and your transfers like that. A recent divorce. So like event-based lifestyle things that would affect why they'd want to sell, and potentially at a discount because they just want to move on, get moving. Other really cool things that we're targeting right now, in addition to those, are really targeting landlords, because a lot of landlords don't want to be landlords right now. They can't collect rent, they have issues with it, or they got into landlording and they realize they don't like it, right? So targeting a house that's owned by, it's called a non-owner occupied type of list, or just, especially if you take that to another level, you look for the houses that are in your market that have an owner address out of state. Well, why would I do that? Well, they're farther away from the house. They can't physically personally get there as easy as someone else. So higher likelihood they might want to sell to you. Higher likelihood you can go take pictures of the house, show them something wrong with it, and create an issue that's there that they're not even aware of. And then add to that, anything that's vacant, because vacant's not making them money. Vacant has less potential for them. So those are like the cream of the crop, so to speak, at the top of the main issues. And then if you take all those issues and you got every one of those lists of data and you stack them, you could even laser target that down to, well, who has 2 or 3 of these pain points combined, right? But on a surface level, if you just took all vacants in your area, combined that with not only are they vacant, but the owner's out of state, you have a pretty quality list right there just to start with, right? Now, I would add in all the other ones personally, but depends on where you're at with your marketing, right? So I always take that approach. So like if you're scaling, you're looking for more, then you want more data points. If you're just getting started and you want less, vacant, absentee owner, out of state, much smaller list, right? But higher potential they could do something with you. And if you want it even smaller, add another pain point, and it must have equity, or something like that, or the owner must be, over 60 years old. Little different things like that are all factors that would be making the house more likely to be open to a deal, the seller more likely to just want to move on and not worried about getting top dollar.
When you have the list, when you've done this, and this list stack is brilliant, by the way, I've never heard anybody in your industry talk about it, and it makes a ton of sense. Like knowing the what I know about land, which is a completely different world, right? But it makes so much sense of what you're describing. So if you have the list, how do you do cold outreach? What have you found works best? Is it cold calling? Is it direct mail pieces? Is it, what are you doing to get in touch with them cold?
Yeah. So in a perfect world, everything. Right? An amount of each thing. I like to run, a good friend of mine actually did a presentation on it, so I won't take credit for his idea. He called it the conveyor belt system. And it was brilliant for marketing. And the conveyor belt system was, he basically said, hey, if allowable where you're at, ringless voicemail drops everyone. So it leaves them a message, right?
Right.
And he uses that as the cheapest form of marketing to broadcast a message out to everyone that's on the list. And then anyone that replies, he's getting the low-hanging fruit fast and cheap. And then he's also finding out who's not responsive to that. Or he's also cleaning the list by everyone that said, leave me alone, I don't want to sell, don't touch me, the pain in the butt ones. From that, his conveyor belt then goes into text messaging next. And why text messaging? Well, it's the next cheapest form. Between those two, they're the 2 cheapest ways to market. Right? They're like pennies or fractions of a penny to send a message. So next he's texting whoever's left on the list. And then again, cleaning the list of everyone that says opt out, leave me alone, don't own the house, right? And he's using that as a verifying tool of who actually might own the house. Was my data good? Did they sell it? Did something happen we don't know about? It hasn't been recorded yet, right? And he's also getting more low-hanging fruit, which I agree with. We do those because they're low-hanging fruit. They're very easy. But it's outbound effort. Next, he takes that into putting it into a dialer in the conveyor belt, right? And that's your outbound calling. But here's the cool thing. The data that makes it to there has either not responded to the other 2, already removed all the people we're working on and following up with to get a deal done with, opted all of the people that would have been a pain in the butt if we actually physically called them on the phone, and also most likely verifying who didn't own houses so we don't waste time calling those. And now, so you've scrubbed the data through the first 2 even more. And now you're dialing all of them. And why dialing next? Well, dialing again is lower expense rate than direct mail, for instance. And you're dialing the whole list. And again, doing the same thing, grabbing low hanging fruit, cleaning out verification and opt-outs and people who aren't interested. And then what you have left is whatever data is left is people that didn't respond to text, didn't respond to voicemails, didn't pick up their phone, didn't complain, they just didn't respond. You also have a much smaller list, and then he takes that list and sends direct mail out to all of those because it's the most expensive. But I've also now cleaned down the list and took all the low-hanging fruit out of it from all the other ways they might respond, and then figured the only reason they didn't respond to text, voicemail, or phone call is because that's just not their favorite way to communicate. They're most likely someone who goes to their mailbox and checks it. So I'm going to send them a piece of mail. It's the only thing I have left in my arsenal, so to speak, right? And now personally, and in our business, we do all of that in that kind of sequence. Then we also have online presence, because if you can't get them from any of those 4, then they're the type of person who's just not going to respond to outreach, right? And call back in. But they're the type of person, when they're ready, they might just be going online or searching on their phone, sell my house, and you need to be there. Or They may be listening to the message you left, looking at the text you left, seeing the cold calling phone number you came from, and they may be searching you or your direct mail piece in your company name. And when they search you, they better be able to find you. They better be able to find your phone number. And so those phone numbers need to be connected to something online so that the last resort is anyone else that's left all gets filtered into that online place, because everyone's online today. And if you're not, you should be, right? Then that brings them back in. And then all of those feed into your salespeople with the best you can get in the leads up front, and knowing they all suck and they're all going to take conversations and they're all going to take multiple touches. Of course, you have the we call it the bluebird lead, the one in 120 leads that come in that you will get a deal that says, yes, I want half off because they got a foreclosure next week and they know it and they ain't got no more time left kind of scenario, right? The rest will need to be touched multiple times, which should be automated on your end so that that happens until your salespeople can do a deal with them.
That sounds easy.
It does.
It sounds like you, I mean, you've really mastered it, and knowing, we've built, building an 8-figure business, it's every single aspect of that makes it work. And
Yes.
what people listening or is watching don't some of them understand is that you have to have permissions for all that stuff. Like, you got to get a certain kind of list and make sure you're staying within all the regulations of all that. So that's a lot to manage. So that's a quick overlook. That's like what your system is like to even get a lead. And like you said, you haven't even talked about the follow-up once you're actually making contact with those leads.
Yeah, and I would say it's even more important if you haven't already set up the way you're going to follow up, whether it's automated or you have a scheduled time you're going to do it. You're already losing on the money you're spending on marketing because they're just going to sit there then, right? And they're going to fall through the cracks. And then for anyone who's on here that doesn't have, that says that, and well, man, it must take a big budget to run all those different things. Not necessarily, right? If you're doing it right. But let's just go to the person who's just starting out. What I would recommend for someone starting out is pick the thing that you like the most and do that as your marketing. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you find yourself, so for me, for example, I'm a texter. Everyone know I have no notifications for email. I don't check my voicemail, even says I don't check my voicemail. Good luck if you leave me a message. I prefer you to text me. I have no social media things. I don't check my mailbox. If I do, I grab the mail and throw it on a counter that my wife checks, right? So if you try any form of communication besides text, you're not going to get me, most likely. But if you text me, you're sure to get a reply today. Everyone of listening to this has a preferred method that they have for communication. You're a texter by trade, or you love to talk on the phone for hours, which means you'll check your voicemail, you'll call people back, or you'll see the missed call and just call them. You won't even listen to the voicemail, or you check the mail every day and look at what's in there and go through every piece of mail. Whatever that is for you, that is your preferred personal choice, do that in your marketing and focus on that one channel and do everything you can to be a master of that one marketing channel, and you'll still be successful. And ultimately, why I say pick the one that you like the most, not why can't you give me the one that's the magic bullet? No, they all work. There's no magic. The magic will come from you like that one the most. So you will have the most belief in that one working. And guess what will happen? You will get the most responses and the best possibility of doing a deal from that channel because you believe in it the most already. It's the easiest one for me to know you will get success on something you believe in, rather than trying to tell you why you got to do direct mail that you don't even check yourself. It works. It will always work, right? Direct mail is the one that'll be around forever. Doesn't have the compliance. I'm allowed to mail anybody, right? There's no, this phone number's on this list and you're not allowed to call them, right? That doesn't exist in direct mail. Yet, if you don't believe in it, it won't work. You won't do it consistently enough.
What about ROI? I mean, you getting good ROI here? Because there's a lot of systems, a lot of automation. There's a team that's got to be put together. Give me some feedback there. Is especially now with the market like it is, it's hard to even get in and get properties at the right price. So what kind of ROI can you get with doing what you're doing and incorporating all these kind of systems to be able to get the lead, generate and cultivate the lead?
Yeah, I would tell you any marketing channel that you're in and doing, if you're not getting a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 on your money, your return on investment, get out of it. You're either really horrible at it or that channel is not effective where you're at. And there's now unpacking that could be bad list data that you put in to begin with. So bad data, bad results, right? If you have good list data, and assuming you do, could just be that market is unresponsive to that channel because other people are just blowing it up. So it all comes down to tracking, right? It's just tracking what's working. If I'm putting marketing dollars into a channel and it's not working, and now let me caveat that with over time, because I can already see the people and hear the people that say, yep, I did direct mail this week and I didn't get enough phone calls. I didn't make money. I'm done. Direct mail doesn't work. Well, that's not true, right? I believe you have to take at a minimum, look at a 90-day cycle. So if you do a marketing and you're doing it for less than 90 days consistently is the other key, then you don't even know if it got your return on investment or not, right? If you think that I'm going to spend, if your budget is $5,000, right, for marketing, and you go spend it all on a direct mail piece and then you don't do a deal, you're going to say direct mail sucks. I would have said, take your $5,000, break it up over 12 weeks, send that amount of mail consistently over the next 12 weeks, and you'll have a result to know if it works very well. And most likely you'll have a return on investment. Same thing with texting, any channel you pick, break it up over time. Don't think I'm going to do everything this week and I'm going to get a result, because that just won't, you might get lucky, but it's unlikely to happen, right? Marketing and ROI comes from consistency. So if you don't market for a consistent time frame consistently, you just won't get a result. You'll say something doesn't work. You'll say you didn't get a return on investment, and you didn't, but it's because you approached it completely wrong, and you never approached it like a business owner would, that would get a return on investment. So we get a return on investment on everything. If we're not, we totally shut the channel off, or we identify there's an issue somewhere and we have to go fix it, right? Put the wrong phone number on a mail piece. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of horror stories that people have done, right? Wrong phone number. Why am I getting no phone calls? Well, go test the phone number you put on your marketing. Oh, where that goes to some car wash company down the street. No wonder you're getting no deals, right? I've seen it all. We've made some of those mistakes personally in our own business. Like, why does that number doesn't come to us? What happened? You know, that's the kind of stuff you have to look at from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, you absolutely must get a return on investment.
Well, what's it like to work with you guys? Like, what of this part of this process are you doing for your members?
Well, depending on where you're at, we do it all, right? So if you're starting out for, a couple bucks for a cost of a Starbucks coffee a day, we do all the automated follow-up for you, and it's already pre-built. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to build it. You don't have to put it together. And it's one system. So the advantage of realestateinvestor.com is that we've just brought everything that you could possibly need into one place for real estate investing. We meet you where you are in your journey, whether you're new, scaling, broken, and then we fill in the gaps. We have everything. So it's easier to say, whatever it is you think you need, realestateinvestor.com was created for the purpose of being one place that solves every issue you could possibly have in your business. And so we meet you where you are, and we fill in the gaps to get you to where you want to go, and then ultimately allow you to live the lifestyle that you dreamed would be possible when you got into real estate, right? When I started in real estate, that wasn't the case, right? It was, I got this and that next shiny object and that one. And over the course of years, I figured out a lot of what I just said. Realestateinvestor.com was simply created so that people don't have to waste years figuring it out. Tell us where you are, tell us where you want to go. We'll solve that everything in one place, and you can get making money right away. You can focus on doing deals. And if you suck at sales, well, we have sales training too to help you figure out how to talk better to people to do sales, right? It's because that's if someone fails with us, that's why. So we created a sales course because we realized, oh, it's the number one thing people that are failing. This is why they're still failing. All right, let's help them with that too. Only thing we don't do is close the deals for you. But
where can everybody go to learn more about automation, about these processes, and about working with you guys as well?
Yeah, right at our domain, realestateinvestor.com is the best place. And then just pick your path, right? If you're just looking for software solutions, you can click an option to learn more about that stuff. If you're looking to scale your business and you want done for you services and a team that manages your marketing and manages your lead management until it's ready to negotiate a deal, we do that. And if you're just someone that needs total coaching on no clue where you want to go and accountability to get it done, we have that too. And just pick your path and someone on the team will chat with you.
I appreciate you coming on with us today.
Thanks, Ty. It's been a pleasure today.
So if you're watching this, you look real estate investing. I don't know if you paid attention to what's happening with real estate right now, but it's exploding for a lot of different reasons, including construction is tough right now, especially with the cost of lumber and so many other things. But real estate's exploding in so many places around the country. And I was talking to somebody yesterday from Idaho and said the same thing. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are, especially down here where Robert and I are, down in Tampa, Florida. So this is a great time to either get in this industry or to be able to really grow and scale if you're already in. And I know a lot of you already are, because real estate investors is a large part of our market. So the question is how much of this do you want to do on your own? And are you doing any of these things? I mean, there's a lot of good points here. 8 touch points for follow-up, for example. Are you incorporating text, direct mail, phone, email, all in your strategy? How much of it is automated? To build what he's talking about costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time to do. And then you got to test it. There's so many things involved. So if you want to learn more about making this simple, about automating and be able to get your business to a point where you get better ROI, better value from every lead that you're touching, being able to hyper target the actual right leads for your business, all of this, you can get it all at realestateinvestor.com. That's realestateinvestor.com. When you go here, the website's beautiful, and there's so many things about partner programs, services, software, so many things you can learn just by going here. Remember, we just scratched the surface today. So go to realestateinvestor.com, check it out. And again, if you're already in the industry, if you want to get in the industry, you really should talk to these guys, because Robert and his team can help you do this whole thing where you get maximum bang for your buck. And when you look at that and get the ROI of what they can do for you versus do it on your own, it's going to cost you considerably less to use their already pre-built automation systems process to help you succeed than probably even thinking about trying to do it on your own. That's for you to figure out, but it's worth talking to Robert and his team about. Make sure you go to realestateinvestor.com right now. Make sure you take that one action to be on your way for fully automating your real estate investing business. So make sure you visit realestateinvestor.com. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.